Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find a way to watch this podcast. It is me, Omar Ashanti Borja, the Burger Popper, joining joining my good friend Justin from Updog Sports Talk on Super Bowl Sunday. We're recording this little pregame. No, we're not doing a pregame show. No, we're not even talking about pro football, and no, we're not even talking about North Dakota State. Which at the time of this recording, man, like um, that is the flavor of the day. That is the wildfire of the day in terms of college football news. But we had planned this about like a week or so ago, just talking about some happenings on the bowl landscape after the Denver Bowl game, after first the Denver Bowl game was shuttered before it even started, and then the LA Bowl sadly went out and sent a series of memes and just I guess kind of had some fun with their demise. But I'm joined again by just my good friend Justin from Updog Sports Talk, who was just so gracious to just join on Super Bowl Sunday. I know we talked before that he's taking it easy. I know I'm taking it easy on Super Bowl Sunday and just kind of enjoying the festivities quietly. So Justin, thanks for joining again. How's everything going?
It's going good. Yeah, thank you for having me on. It is always a pleasure to come on here and talk about, especially bowl games. I know, like, this is always a show that we love to have because we're both very passionate about them, and I think I'm definitely excited for this specific one that we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, absolutely. And I know, of course, like I pulled you on. I mean, I just asked you I asked you to join the podcast because Matt, you guys are the subject matter experts, for the Cincinnati Chili Bowl. I guess probably the leading online advocates, just since you guys live in Cincinnati. And then even more so in a weird way, like this whole Cincinnati Chili Bowl, saga slash fight to have the game become certified and become part of college football's postseason took like an even deeper connection with you guys because you guys frequent the state of Colorado because you guys have a friend in college that works for the University of Colorado at Boulder now. I know that you guys root for the Buffaloes, so it's just funny how this thing took a turn involving Denver and their pursuit of a bowl game. So I guess just starting off with that. So with the Cincinnati Chili Bowl, of course, there's no tie-ins yet, but it seems from everything from I guess the one thing I've heard from the one insider that's covering this whole thing with the Denver Bowl and the LA Bowl that the Pac-12's bowl options are pretty limited at this time. So I guess what are your thoughts, as someone who lives in Cincinnati, someone who roots for a school that was formerly in the Pac-12 before it dissolved, like do you think that the Pac-12 in general is a good fit for this bowl game despite the distance and everything working against it?
I mean, it's a very weird fit, but at the same time, at some point you only have so many options, and even if it is, maybe sending you're trying to sort out your bowl, and maybe you're putting sending one of your lower like 6-6 bowl teams out to Cincinnati to play a MAC team. Maybe you're doing that, but at least you're filling out bowl spots for your teams. And maybe that kind of allows the Pac 12 to send their 6-6 teams to that bowl game, and then leave some of their better ones that didn't reach the playoff the opportunity to potentially fill in against a power conference foe in one of those spots that power conference does not fill up, because we've seen that happen a lot this past year. Even like there's usually some of these weird games that we get where like I don't know why I can't think of one this past year, but like 2024 when Louisiana played TCU in the New Mexico Bowl. So like those opportunities come around, and I think that maybe could be the Pac-12 strategy is to save some of their better teams for those, and then be able to have a tie-in so they could say, hey, we have bowl tie-ins. We're not the Sun Belt from many years ago where we're going to risk having our better teams left out because we don't have this. And that way, I think that's where I see the fit for this.
That makes a lot of sense in terms of just kind of waiting and seeing how like the rest of the dominoes fall for ESPN. I will say though something with that approach that's kind of cautionary, I think, for the Pac-12 and even for the Mountain West, mind you, it's the fact that neither of those schools partner with ESPN, where it's like it kind of seems like there's no incentive for ESPN to help those schools out and and just like instead of just cover their schools first, cover their the Sun Belt, the American, the MAC, Conference USA, like make sure those schools are taken care of first, and then take care of the Pac-12. So it's like I'm kind of inclined to believe that it's kind of a wait and see, where it's like, okay, well, we're gonna put the Pac-12 in the Potato Bowl because like it sells tickets. Like this past year with Utah State and Washington State, I think it was like one of the most attended Potato Bowls in the past like 5 years, if not the most attended. Like I kind of see like the ESPN kind of saying, okay, we'll save you a spot for the Potato Bowl, the Hawaii Bowl, and like one of the DFW bowls, because it just makes more sense geographically, but we can't guarantee a good matchup because we got to take care of our schools first. And that's where I think too, where it's like that strategy where I can see the Pac-12 putting their lower tier teams against the MAC and the Cincinnati Chili Bowl. I can see where it makes sense. I just kind of think it's just kind of like a risky approach to take, just with how their TV deal shook out without ESPN being involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they'll have an out with that. Like, they can kind of float their better teams out. If it doesn't work, then sure, maybe you have to send Boise State in there to play, play Toledo. I think that still could be a fun matchup, for example. But at the same time, I think you at least give yourself options, because I think that's one of the scary things of the Pac-12 at this point. It's like you're starting to see your options dwindle a little bit. They had a lot of good feelings there about potentially playing that bowl game in Denver, and then that fell through. So now you're just trying to figure out, like, what are your other options. And I know for Cincinnati, this bowl game was proposed back in 2023. It was one, and they had everything together. Like, they had sponsorship and all of that. It just got rejected because they had too many bowls at the time. Now we're entering a point where there's a bit of a bowl vacuum with the LA Bowl now deceased. So I think that's where you could see the opportunity kind of step in a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think I agree with you. Or like now it's like there is a spot that's there, honestly. And I think the director of bowl season, he said that he kind of gave an answer, no answer when asked about the future of bowl games, whether there will be a cap. He's like, well, there's never been a cap on bowl games, but we'll keep having as many bowl games as schools seem profitable. Well, it's like, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell year to year, like what schools are going to opt out and whatnot, what schools are really going to wish they played in a bowl game, So it's kind of interesting where it's like, yes, that spot's there, honestly, with the LA Bowl. I'm just interested to see like who would play potentially if the Chili Bowl does get approved, if like the Pac-12 kind of just like takes what they can get in terms of the Cincinnati Chili Bowl, and just kind of dedicates itself and just kind of commits to just like, this is one of our partners. This is a game that's broadcasted, or supposedly broadcasted by one of our TV partners, which we'll talk about later on. Like, this is something that we're all in on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think where this bowl has potential is because we've seen kind of the rise of like fun, relatable bowls gathering viewers. Obviously the Pop Tarts Bowl is the most prominent example, but Cincinnati Chili's always been like kind of an interesting curiosity for those who are not in Cincinnati. Like, everyone kind of wants to like try it and understand it because it seems like this weird combination. And there's just so much you can do to make that fun and entertaining. Whether it's edible Coney mascots or Coney races at halftime or all the other silly ideas that we have thrown out there on our podcast. I think you can add a lot of intrigue by using that. And all of a sudden, like, you've got people tuning in to watch the Miami Redhawks play Utah State, because they're just so interested in all this weirdness around Cincinnati Chili. So I think it could end up being a very, I think you're making bowl season, because that's what the bowl's really going into. It's being fun, weird, entertaining. And all of a sudden you've got yourself in a good spot. And of course, being fun, weird, and entertaining, Omar, this would certainly add a very strange element to your bowl season goulash.
Yeah, I think I almost forgotten that I eaten that, honestly, because that gave me a world of hurt like the whole day with my stomach. Honestly, my stomach paid for that. So I'm kind of begging. I kind of don't want any Skyline chili, because I'll have to add the cans of Skyline chili that I see at Walmart, or I notice they're probably always there, but I notice at Walmart from time to time. But it's funny you mentioned that. I think that's interesting too, like the whole gimmickness of bowl games. And for me, as a bowl game purist, as much as I hate for it, to kind of like take the attention away from the two teams on the field, because honestly, like Pop Tarts or not, Georgia Tech BYU was one of the greatest, matchups of the bowl season period. And like the play on the field, like met that. You have like two of the best quarterbacks in the country in, Bear Bachmeyer and just gave my name right now.
Haynes King.
Haynes King, yeah, Haynes King. I'm sorry. There's just like there's just so many quarterbacks like that are like mid level. Like I mean, that I guess the way it is like you have Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sane, but like everyone else is just kind of like garbled up in that middle tier in terms of like draft worthy quarterbacks. That's just like hard to remember. But yeah, like you have that great bowl game, but of course everyone's like staying till the end to watch the Pop-Tart toasting. So it's like with the Chili Bowl, the potential is there. Like I definitely am growing on the whole gimmicky stuff with bowl games. The chili's there, honestly, like with, you know, the chili dump at the end of the game. And of course you have a celebrity who is forever intertwined with the food chili and Brian Baumgartner from The Office. Of course, like you can't, of course, I'm sure if you mention the word chili to a lot of people think Kevin. Oh, Kevin's chili. Kevin from The Office. Kevin. So it's like if you have Brian Baumgartner dumping the chili at the end of the game on the coach preferably, and not on the camera people like you did in the Holiday Bowl, you have you have a recipe for just great ratings for the CW. Which honestly, the CW, I'm just so glad the CW is just going all in on sports and like seeing the trends where it's like, no offense, no one cares about Superman anymore. I don't even know if they air Superman on the CW, but they were when I was in high school. So that's the example I want to use. Like no one cares about that. Like, people, like the audiences are turning into live sports because like from a network or TV perspective, like that's something that you can provide at a premium that the streaming services can't without, like, so I'm all in, honestly. I think that it's a model that they could definitely go after and um yeah, like, and thrive, honestly. I think the one issue that I do have though is the travel. I mean, it's tough because Cincinnati isn't exactly a travel hub. And of course, if we partner the Pac-12, like this is just going to be a tough sell because um, I just kind of wonder nowadays how a lot of bowls are profitable. Like I would just love to see a bowl's financial statement for the year to see how much the TV contract pulls compared to how much like gate receipts are, because it just doesn't seem profitable to have like maybe a 10,000 fan attendance at TQL Stadium, but who knows? Maybe that CW check will be fat.
Yeah, I think it's all about viewership too. Like if you get a good amount of TV viewers, you find yourself in a great position to make money. And I'm wondering if that's where they're finding it. The CW's best ability for a long time is availability, but I think as they've continued to put themselves into sports a little bit more, I think people are starting to realize this is a destination that we can go to. And I think the CW has made huge steps this offseason with signing on more games from the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. Like we're about to see the CW in every single window. And I think that is huge for the relevancy of the network. And that's why they make such a viable partner for this bowl game. They already partner with the Pac-12, so you can kind of see where you can get that. Like, you're having a MAC territory, so you get the partnership with the MAC, and then you use the Pac-12's network. The CW, this is their opportunity to get themselves more involved in bowl season. Obviously, they have the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl presented by Didn't Juice by Dre and Snoop. I always love to say the full name because it's just so hilarious. But you already got that bowl game, but get yourself another one with the Cincinnati Chili Bowl. And this is actually something they looked into years ago. In that 2023 proposal, when they proposed it, the CW was going to broadcast that game. So this definitely is not an idea out of nowhere either. Like this is something the CW has interest in, and I know definitely the MAC would have interest in it. TQL Stadium in Cincinnati has interest in it. It will be very interesting though, because you're right about Cincinnati not being a travel hub. It's not a huge one. I know just recently they've started to build more hotels around the stadium. So they're trying, mainly that was like trying to get a push to get maybe some of these World Cup. Um, I don't know enough soccer to. I wish I had an intern on. He's the one that knows about soccer, but I think it's like qualifier games or something. They were trying to get some of them here, so they started building some hotels around the stadium. Did not win that bid, but maybe they can win the bid for a bowl game as a result of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and we've seen non-travel hub cities, of course, find their way around that and survive for a long time. Like, just look at the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. I'm sure people are saying like that'll never last more than a few years, and here we are. I think it's nearing its 30th edition sometime soon. So I mean, that's just a small hurdle. But yeah, I mean, you're right, just about the CW too, and like they can always just create kind of like a bowl block too, where it's like one of my favorite days of the college football postseason is the ABC Saturday triple header because it's like it feels like an event. It feels like these bowl games are important, just all being on ABC. Like maybe the CW can also do some of that with a double header with the famous with the Arizona Bowl, with the Arizona Bowl and the Chili Bowl, or even just like put it on later in the year. Like the CW, like you said, has a bit like maybe less availability, but during the college football postseason, like it has a bunch of availability where it's like, to offset the whole travel obstacles, maybe you play this game in early January, I mean, in its own date. Maybe you take like the Monday night date that the GoDaddy.com, now the 68 Vendors Bowl. I mean, I had to recall what it was when it was on that Monday night slot. Maybe you take like that Monday night slot. You're the only bowl game on TV on the CW in January. So plenty of options for the CW, and I think it's a great partner too. Like I have long advocated for this for just parity and distribution for just all of our bowl games because when I was 6 years old, just exploring college football. I remember on New Year's Day you had Alabama Texas Tech on in the Cotton Bowl on Fox. You had the Gator Bowl, Virginia Tech versus Louisville on NBC, and then of course you had ABC's host the games. So I kind of missed that for college football. But going on to the Denver Bowl, just the situation with that, and I'm just glad that I have you on this podcast too, just to the rare Cincinnati Colorado crossover in college sports, in our little sphere. Like, are you surprised that Denver was unable to find a way to host a bowl game? Because man, like I was surprised in doing research for writing about that. Like, just Denver has everything you'd want that a bowl game would need, like a huge population base, the third busiest airport in the country, which that blew my mind. I was really surprised by that, and just I mean, very accessible to the country and of like huge population base and schools around it. So like, does it surprise you that this proposed Denver Bowl kind of fizzled and paved the way for a potential Cincinnati Chili Bowl?
It does, but it doesn't. So there's definitely a lot of pluses to Denver, which of course, like you said, like the giant airport. I'll tell you what, the airport is always full of surprises. Um, but like you've got yourself a great position there. Like, and you have a few different venues. Like you could host it at Folsom Field in Boulder, or you could host it Mile High, depending on who was more interested in hosting that game. So you had host venues. You have a population. Not only do you have a population, you have a very transplant heavy population. So there's a good chance you've got alums from the schools that are playing that are already there and would be very interested in going to this bowl game. I think the one challenge you run into though is it's a market that probably is more geared towards pro sports. Obviously, Deion Sanders being at Colorado has helped kind of make a little bit of a push to make college more relevant there, but it's still a very pro sports heavy town. So that might be where they eventually struggle to drum up interest is trying to draw away those sponsors that are busy sponsoring the Denver Broncos, Denver Nuggets, um, the the baseball team whose name escapes me right now. Like it was probably difficult to draw that away, and I think that's probably where they ran into trouble is just it being a little bit more of a pro heavy market.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too, the point about it being a pro heavy market, which I know I think it's I laughed and I swear because you forgot the name of the Rockies because it just kind of shows the state of that franchise right now. And I know I hate to rag on the Rockies because the Albuquerque Isotopes, my old hometown or old hometown home area, like that's their AAA affiliate. So like I have a soft spot for the Rockies, but man, that's just indicative of where they are as a franchise. They're collecting money like the Pirates. But I
And the
think
Reds.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess so. Like for me, like in my head, like I just think like the Reds are just like better off, Just I still think of Joey Votto and him making the postseason more than a few times, but I mean, I'll take your word for it. But in terms of like that's interesting. In terms of like a pro heavy market, it just draws my mind back to the Colorado State Colorado rivalry, the Rocky Mountain Showdown, like where it's like that game hasn't been played in Denver the past few years, and it kind of makes me wonder if if how long this idea has been around, to have a Denver bowl game, and whether the Rocky Mountain Showdown was kind of like a proof of concept that just didn't work out because they're simply like not having it there anymore. I think they haven't played. Looking at it, looking at the Wikipedia page, they haven't played in Denver since 2019. So I just kind of wonder, and it just kind of makes sense too, especially when you have an athletics program like Colorado, or I should say a flagship athletics program like Colorado that hasn't been successful at football, has seen occasional success in men's and women's basketball, as far as I know. And then a Colorado State, Colorado State's there, but they're just like they're always on uphill battle with the flagship institution. Like they've been good at times, but always trying to be on that uphill. And even then Fort Collins is like further north too. So it's like it's not even like that's like our particularly close like market to Denver.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember correctly because that 2019 game, that was Mel Tucker's debut, also my friend's debut at Colorado. So like I remember that game was not well attended at all. They did not get a huge draw there. Where meanwhile, like the last 2 years that they played, when they played on campus at CU and at Colorado State, those stadiums were full. The crowds were, basically sold out and everything. So it seemed like campus was more of a draw than playing in Mile High Stadium.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. And like for me, like I love neutral site games, but I can't blame them for making that decision too, because I can't imagine the 2023 Colorado or Rocky Mountain Showdown being played at Denver. Honestly, with all the emotions that went into that game, like man, it was crazy. Jay Norvell versus Deion Sanders and everything. Like I thought it was amazing, an amazing atmosphere, but it just makes me wonder, like, and just in my research, like Denver just has never really had a postseason game, like not since a Great Depression charity benefit game that they had in early 1930s. So I guess that drought continues.
Yeah, I mean, I think it continues a little bit. I mean, we've seen it with Cincinnati too. Like, I don't think there's been the only bowl game I can think of that was ever in the Cincinnati area is one of our favorites to always bring up, the old Aviation Bowl in Welcome Stadium that was in 1961. And I think that still stands as New Mexico's last bowl victory. They came so close this year in the Rate Bowl. Man, I'm so glad that we got the Aviation Bowl mentioned on this podcast today. But yeah, that's the only Cincinnati area bowl I can think of that we've ever had in this area.
Yeah, I mean, I think the stars are aligning for this game to happen, honestly, and I hope it does. But as we bring the show to a close, another way that this is all kind of connected, we mentioned the LA Bowl and just how that game just kind of folded. I guess do you see like more games folding, more bowl games folding or taking this route? Notably, like the LA Bowl was not owned by ESPN. It was backed. I want to say it was backed by Stan Kroenke himself. I think by his entertainment company. I'd have to do
Hmm.
more research. I heard it somewhere. I should have verified it before coming on here. But I guess do you see like more bowls just taking the LA Bowls route and just like calling it quits? Because like we were talking beforehand, everything seemed to be okay. Like the LA Bowl had all time viewership highs this past year, but ultimately decided to call it quits.
I don't know exactly because I feel like that's the general reaction is, oh no, this bowl just folded. There's going to be more. I'm going to kind of pump the brakes on that a little bit. I think the LA Bowl kind of had its own unique issues. For one thing, in the last couple of years, it was way too early. Like, you give these teams a week notice to go to the least accessible city in the United States, LA. If I remember correctly, this game was this like the day before the Lions are playing the Rams too. So a lot of that was a very popular trip for like a lot of Lions fans who had months in advance to book hotels and everything to gobble those up and see the Lions play their former quarterback in Matt Stafford. So you made it. you could not have made that more difficult for Washington and Boise State fans to go to that game. And I think that's where you ran into a problem where I think there's kind of a middle ground. Like you need to be able to at least have some people in attendance to make it worthwhile for the bowl because when you have good attendance, like you're helping the economy around the game too. Like you're wherever that is, like you're helping the economy. So I think LA kind of ran into that issue where the game was just so hard to access for traveling fans that they just stopped going. And I think that's the problem they ran into and why they eventually had to fold the game.
Yeah, I definitely I would agree. Honestly, this year it was evident, but you can kind of see it too with like this 12-team playoff. I mean, it was a casualty of the 12-team playoff. Even last year when they had to be on a Tuesday night, either a Monday or Tuesday night, I think it was December 16th too. And it was UNLV that had played in the Mountain West Championship game less than 2 weeks beforehand. It's just a tough sell for these teams too. And I think the more cautionary part too, like I also am one to pump the brakes on like everything happening because obviously like, there's still a market for bowl games. Like the TV viewership is there. Sponsors want to be a part of this. Most of these bowl games want to be part of most of these bowl games. So it's like I'm kind of inclined to believe that, yeah, sure, we had a bunch of teams opt out, but there's still going to be teams to play and people are still going to watch that. I'd love to see the viewership of the Birmingham Bowl that was a conference game that featured pretty much the 85th or however, I guess whatever number, 95th, bowl team, 95th option for a bowl game in App State. So people want to watch these things. What scares me more is the fact, like with the Denver Bowl, that they weren't able to secure a TV partner or a sponsor, honestly. So I think that's what scares me more. I think I'm more scared about like what the Denver Bowl ran into than the LA Bowl because even then the LA Bowl, like, here's my historian hat on. Like the LA Bowl is nothing more than the Freedom Bowl of the 1980s and early 90s in an indoor stadium, state of the art indoor stadium. I mean, the Freedom Bowl ran into the same issues, like being in Anaheim, having to fight with the LA sports scene, the crowded LA sports and pop cultural scene, and it ultimately like fizzled out a couple more years longer than the or after then or had a longer lifetime by a couple years than the LA Bowl. So, I don't want to be negative. I kind of feel like it was like doomed to fail. Our history was doomed to repeat itself, and it ultimately did. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like a sad time. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but I mean, either way, like I think there's hope for optimism, but there's hope for that this was just a, you know, doom from the start.
Yeah, and I do have to say, like, fan for a lot of fans of these programs, like the bowl trip still means a lot. Like there are fans out there who like it's and these by the way, these are not the fans who want to upset, by the way. These are the ones that are donating to the program. They look forward to that bowl trip every year. And I think having the bowl too early in bowl season robs them of that, or opting out entirely also robs them of that. Like Kansas State is a good example of a fan base that looks forward to making the trip to that bowl game every year. When they announced they were opting out of the bowl game, man, you should have seen the comment section below. Like it was just like all sorts of angry comments, like, "Why do I donate to the NIL of this program when I only get to have a bowl trip at the end of the year?" Like all that kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of an underrated aspect too, because we tend to spread the bowl schedule out more for TV viewership, but really having it around that holiday time, especially near New Year's, like that sets up a great opportunity for people to just take that trip and get to see their team play and experience a new area. Like that's something that's been special to a lot of college football fans, and it's a very underrated aspect. I don't think a lot of people think about that. Um, so I think that's optimism for bowl games in the future, but definitely the one area where it's scary is the fact that the Denver Bowl could not find a sponsor. That's definitely the one area of pessimism for me is that there was this idea to finally bring excitement to an area that has not had in a while, very tourist friendly area, and they couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Like the fact that no sponsor wants to get their name out because we've seen sponsors from entire towns, makers wanted, That's a deep pull. To of course, your common, well-known food products like Pop Tart, Scooter's Coffee. You've seen those companies, at least from Makers Wanted, at least enter the consciousness of college football fans, to Pop Tart and Scooter's Coffee just elevating their brands to new heights. So it's kind of scary that a brand wouldn't want to take that opportunity, that chance to gamble. Which, needless to say, too, it's even more scary, just considering, like, with the Hula Bowl, which, even though it's not a bowl game, like, you had sponsors lining up to sponsor the Hula Bowl just because the game was supposed to be broadcast on CBS Sports Network. And I'm not going to get into that because that's a very not taboo topic, but it's a very touchy subject for a lot of people in the draft scouting community. I'm just following it from far away as someone who loves All-Star games. But even then, the fact that people were willing to companies were willing to partner with the Hula Bowl that was not televised nationally the prior year, and they only sponsored because of the promise of a return to national TV this year. The fact that a bowl game wouldn't want to do that with the Denver Bowl, or a company wouldn't want to do that with the Denver Bowl, it's actually quite troubling, honestly. But even then, like, it's just kind of hard because things just happen. I mean, just out of the blue, and I guess single dominoes fall, I guess, just all the time. And maybe that was just a single domino and we just don't realize it.
Absolutely, yeah. Man, like I mean, I just even thought about it off the top of my head. Like the Taco John's Denver Bowl could have been so much fun. Like, come on, Taco John's, get your name out there. I miss that place. We used to have one in Cincinnati, and it's just like all of a sudden abruptly closed, and now it's gone.
Well, I think that's a fun kind of chilling way to end this episode, honestly, like, just with a sad story of Taco John's is closing, and so I think I think we'll go for that and just, like, let you have this time, Justin, to promote the podcast or anything. Like, I just think it's just a hilarious way just to end with just like, okay, I enjoyed this restaurant, now it's closed. But before before we end, Justin, can you just take the time just to promote anything or anyone you'd like to before we sign off?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here we're Updog Sports Talk. You can find us at Updog Sports Talk on all social media networks. We also have our podcast on YouTube. We're getting a lot better about the audio podcast as well. We recently hit a breakthrough there, and now you can expect our audio podcast to post the day after our live shows on Wednesdays. We have our live shows Wednesdays at 8 o'clock Eastern. And the podcast version will now be releasing every Thursday morning. So good news there. So make sure you follow us there and keep up with that. And yeah, just looking forward to a lot of exciting content throughout to get you through the off season.
Yeah, I mean, you guys do an outstanding job, honestly, just covering not just football, but just all the sports in general too. And I know with, like, the intern as well, like, you guys expand your coverage into soccer, which now Cincinnati is a soccer town, of course, with TQL Stadium and Cincinnati FC. But I appreciate your work, and I more so appreciate the friendship, that we have. That's something I just value more in doing this.
Likewise.
Connections. So this was fun, honestly. Like, this was, I was just looking forward to just joking around, honestly, about the Cincinnati Chili Bowl with some serious discussion mixed in, and this didn't disappoint. But thank you again, Justin, for joining. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Just gonna keep coming out with, like, some off-season stuff. I know Jackson and I are planning a HBCU Legacy Bowl preview. I know Jackson's already on his draft board and everything. You know how he loves the NFL draft. Me, I'm just a writer, honestly. I'm not an NFL guy. I'm there for storylines and to celebrate these players' careers. But either way, it'll be fun. We're gonna have fun with it. Just relive some of the storylines from Black college football this season. And maybe there'll be more Curtis Allen glazing on my part because, I mean, that guy's a truth. I believed he's a truth since week one. I think you can look at the tape and me glazing his performance in the maybe I shouldn't use the word glazing. I don't think that's even I don't think that age is even my audience base. That's the first word I can think of. But yeah, I mean, long story short, hopefully we get to have this HBCU Legacy Bowl podcast. But yeah, just keep looking out for off-season stuff like the fireside talks and whatnot, and just writing. But until next time, everyone, Lord bless you, Lord keep you, make his face shine upon you, and be gracious to you. And peace, love, and soul in the Burger Popper.